Welcome back. What I would like to do today is analyze my last few daily games on chess.com. I won a few in a row and I'm pretty proud of a couple of them, but because they were daily games, they took place over the course of a few weeks at least, so I don't remember the specifics of each game. Hopefully going through the analysis here will help me refamiliarize myself with the positions, and hopefully I'll learn something from the mistakes I made. I'm assuming I made mistakes in all of them. Anyway, here's the first one that I wanted to look at, which I already made a 30-minute video on yesterday. But that video did not get uploaded because there were so many interruptions and I lost my train of thought so many times. When I looked at the final product of that video, it wasn't worth trying to edit or upload. But anyway, I did note in the video yesterday that we both played pretty well out through, move 12 or 13. No mistakes, no blunders, no inaccuracies throughout the entire opening. I was pretty happy with that. I made an inaccuracy here when I played b4. If I'm not mistaken, the engine said I should have played g6 at this point because their queen and their rook are both pointed here at h7. I wasn't worried about h7 just yet because my knight's guarding that square. And I thought if they figured out some way to move my knight, for example, if they put this knight here, to attack my knight, then I could play g6 or something like that. And plus, if they take the knight, I can redefend it. My opponent here is supposed to just push past this pawn, but they played g4. Now, of course, during the game, I didn't know that was a mistake. Suddenly, it looks like they might be able to dislodge this knight after all. But as I already pointed out, I have another knight that can take that position, and I'll have time to play g6. I thought if they played this, I could hop my knight in here. If they took, I'd take back, and by the time they took with the queen, I could play g6 then, and I would be okay. So I wasn't worried about that. And the engine says I shouldn't have worried about it. I should have just taken here. But I almost did. I also almost played c4, which would have attacked their queen, and I assumed they would have moved back one. But at the last second, I thought, you know what, let's just avoid that altogether and play h6. That turns out to be my first mistake of the game, and now I see why. It's because I can't take that pawn. They have a whole nother one sitting right there. So it makes sense that that's a mistake. It does temporarily prevent the rook from seeing this square, but it doesn't prevent them from playing g5. I actually had a -1.5 if I had just played g6 or taken the c-pawn. But because I played that, it's back to even now because they can play g5. Well, that had been my opponent's plan the whole time, and they played it. Well, once they played it, I realized my mistake. If I take the pawn, they're going to take back, and my knight is still in trouble. I'm a little bit surprised that Stockfish says my best move is to take this knight on e5, says they would take back with the f-pawn. I'm kind of thinking they would take back with the d-pawn, so their f-pawn would still be defending the g-pawn. But that's what Stockfish thinks. It says it's just as good to play this knight in here to save it. But I went with the idea of danger levels. I figured they're not going to bother taking this knight if I attack their queen, so I attacked their queen. That's inaccurate. It gives them an advantage if they drop back, which is kind of what I thought they would do. I thought that this move c4 was just buying me some time. It forces them to, to move the queen, and then I can figure out what to do with the knight. I was probably going to put it in here. I don't know how good that would have been. I know why I didn't do that first. Even though the engine says I'd be even if I played this, I thought if I played this, they're just going to take it, and I'm going to take back, and they're going to take with their queen, and then their queen is still pointed here. And I don't know what I would do about it at that point. I guess I could still play g6. But anyway, that's what I played. My opponent didn't just drop back to c2, they dropped all the way back, and that's a huge blunder that gives me a huge advantage. I'm really not sure exactly what the difference is. I know what their idea was. It was to keep it on the same diagonal. I don't know why they didn't just drop back one like the engine thought that they should, or maybe come over here to come around this way somehow. Well, maybe not while my knight's still there. But anyway, this gives me a huge advantage only if I take this pawn. And of course, taking that pawn is fine because it's a free pawn. Their b pawn is pinned. If I take back, I would get their queen with the rook. I knew that it was a free pawn, and I also knew that it would be attacking their knight. So if they took my knight, I could take their knight. And if they took my bishop, I could take their bishop with promotion and check. So when they took back whatever I promoted to, then I could save my rook. And I thought I would be doing okay at that point. So I did take there. Now they're supposed to take my knight, which is what I thought would happen. And it says if they did, then I would take their knight. But they wouldn't wait until I promoted. They would take here, which would allow me to take their pawn. And then I would just be a pawn ahead, and I would still have a knight on f6. But I guess my opponent didn't like that idea because I guess they thought if I took here, then, I might be able to promote this way. And also the whole reason that they put that pawn there was to get rid of the knight. Maybe they calculated that if they took my knight and I took their knight and they took the pawn, like Stockfish says, that I would end up with a knight here. And maybe they realized at this point that was a bad idea, so they didn't take my knight. They saved the other one. And here the engine says I should have gone ahead and taken on b2 with this pawn. I'm sure I considered that, but I don't know what it would have accomplished. They just would have taken, right? It says they wouldn't have. The engine says if I took that pawn, they wouldn't take here, that I would expect them to take this knight on d7, and I would take back. And then they would take that pawn with their queen. That's what it says, and I would take their queen with my rook. So I'm curious about that. That's the reason I didn't do it, is because it looked pretty easy to get out of. So if I took here, why would it be so... Okay, well, the engine does think that they might take here on d7, but it also says it would be exactly the same if they took here. But if they took here, then what? Oh, it says then I would play c3. Oh, because of this. So I'm going to get the queen for the rook anyway. Okay, I understand that. I did not look that far ahead, I guess, in the game from this position, because I didn't see that after they took that, I could play c3 and they're going to lose the bishop for a pawn. But I did think, since that knight wasn't guarding e4 anymore, now would be a great time to jump into e4 and save my knight. It's not actually my second best move. My second best move is to take the knight that's really well defended. But I jumped in the middle, as I said, and I still have a significant advantage, and their best move is to just put the queen up on c2. I guess, to get it out of the way of the rook. And that's the only safe square they can move it to. They've kind of got their queen boxed in here. I don't know if I would have found that or not. It says their second best move is b4, in which case I would take with en passant. But I guess my opponent was thinking, since they couldn't take the knight anymore with this pawn, they might as well take the other thing that it was attacking, so they did that. And the game review thought that was their best move. I thought I was in trouble here. This is the point of my next mistake. I thought I was in trouble here, but I guess I shouldn't have been. If they had taken there, I just could have taken the pawn. And I knew that if they pushed forward, I could just get in front of it and I would be fine, at least for now. But I was worried about them taking here and then checkmating me, but that doesn't even make sense because that pawn's not defended. But because I was worried about that, that's why I played this. That's my second mistake of the game, because I was defending that square. It actually is my opponent's best move to take on g7, and they did, and Stockfish would have taken back with the king, which is what I would have done if I hadn't put the bishop up there. But since I did put the bishop up there, I thought it was my best move to take with the bishop. Now, yesterday when I looked at this, there was a much bigger difference between this. One was -1, and the other one was only 0.6 or something. But today they're very close, so I guess it doesn't matter much. I took with the bishop. I still have a little bit of a lead, and the only way my opponent can keep it as a small lead is to play queen to c2, but they did not. They jumped in with the knight. Where's it going? I'm not sure, because that's not a check. That's not a check. They don't want to go here, I don't think, because I could just take, and if they took, I would take with my rook, and I would have gotten 2 knights for a rook and a pawn, which would be about even. My best move, of course, is to take that b2 pawn, which I'd missed on the previous turn, but I can do it now. And again, if they take with the bishop, I can play c3. It doesn't say that they would take with the bishop, but they can. The problem here is that they're attacking the knight on e4. At least that's what I thought the problem was. I didn't want them to attack the knight on e4. But I guess I should have seen this, because that's a bigger deal than the knight. But I did think queen is still pointed here, and their rook is still pointed here at h7. And if they are able to get the knight, and I take back, put their queen here, I'm in danger of being checkmated. So my bright idea, which turned out to be my second best move, was to put my d knight on f6. So if they take that knight, I can just put the other one in there, and then their queen still cannot see h7. But I'm curious, if I had taken down here, would they have taken this knight? It would have been their best move. And had I taken back, I wouldn't have taken back with the pawn. I would have taken the rook and promoted to either a rook or a queen, and they would have to take it. And then I take the knight when their queen's not pointed through there anymore. That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. I should have taken here first. But instead I did this, lost most of my advantage. But again, the idea is I'm still going to have a knight there after they take. Again, they're supposed to play queen to c2, but they took with the knight, and my only move is to take back, which is the whole reason I put this knight here. So of course I'm going to take back. I'm pretty sure the reason here that it's my only move is that if I don't take back, let's say I take this pawn or something, well then they take my knight with check, and when I do this, then the queen is open to come down here. I think that's the reason. Just in case, I want to take a look. If I had taken here, yeah, it's mate in 2, and that's because of this. My only legal move would be to take back, and then, yeah, that's what I thought, which is one of the reasons that I wanted this knight here in the first place. This time they did find queen to c2 to get it out of that, that back hole there that they were in. And now, after about 4 turns in a row of this being one of my best moves, well, not counting that one, but all the other turns, it was my best move to take that pawn. Now it's not my best move. Now I'm supposed to give up my bishop for this knight. And my second best move is rook to b7. I'm not sure about rook to b7. Is that to double up the rooks here? Well, I thought for sure it was my best move to take this pawn now, but now it's not. And of course, now they can take with the bishop, and it's their best move. But then I did remember that I could play c3. I have another c pawn. So I did play that. My opponent found their best move, which was to get the bishop out of danger. It points at this rook. I'm supposed to let him have the rook. I'm supposed to play queen to a5. They're going to take my rook, and then I'm going to play rook to b2. I don't know about that. But this is my third and final mistake of the game here, where I saved the rook. Put the rook over here on c8, which is my second best move. I am working on my ability to calculate 4 or 5 moves ahead, but I still don't have it. So right now, I cannot see why it's best to let them have the rook, threaten their queen. They would put this out of the way and then take their bishop. So I would be down the exchange. Yeah, I just don't know about that. I thought I needed to save the rook, and of course, whenever I put a rook on certain files, it's usually incorrect. I've got to work on that. I'm trying to figure out principles. I've heard a bunch of principles like rooks belong behind passed pawns, rooks belong on open files, or you want your rooks on the 7th rank, or in this case, I would want them on the 2nd rank. Well, this is a semi-open file. That's a passed pawn. So, that made sense to me, but for some reason, Stockfish doesn't agree with those principles. So, or I haven't figured out how to prioritize them. I don't know. Here, my opponent had to play rook to f1. By far their best move. King to h1 is their next best move, and I don't know why either one of those is, but I also don't know why they played this. I'm not sure. Again, what are they going for? Were they trying to check here? I think I just would have taken, or just moved my king. I don't know. But I didn't see any immediate danger from this knight move, and I did see that the bishop was hanging, so I went over there. I assumed that they would go back. I just briefly thought they might go here to c5, where it would be protected by that pawn, but I think I just would have taken it. I didn't even consider that they could have gone here, which is their second best move. It looks like a safe square. Anyway, well, that was weird. I thought I remembered them running away with the bishop. They're supposed to run away with the bishop. I'm going to play rook to c4, which I probably would not have, but that's what the engine would expect. And then they would play knight to f2. I'm guessing the reason for knight to f2 is to trying to dislodge my knight on e4 so their queen can see down here. But they played knight to f2 first, and I can't read my opponent's mind at any point, obviously, but I guess their hope was for me to take there and then they would come down here, but it's not checkmate now. Now my rook's over. I know Stockfish didn't want me to move my rook over, but I'm really glad I did, because now if they check me on h7 with the queen, I can just move my king. And if they try to check again, that's bad. I can take them. But that's the only thing that I can think of, is that they didn't realize this wasn't mate now, because I had moved my rook. So I wasn't worried about that. I thought even if at some point they take this and I take back and they still don't have a mate here, because I moved the rook. So not really a mistake, was it? It kind of saved me here. Anyway, I took the free bishop, and we just played a few more moves. They did that, and they did go down there to check, and I just moved over. Now their rook's in trouble. Rook to f1 is their best move, and they played that, and now it made sense to push that passed pawn because I have a rook behind it. So anyway, if any of you understand those 3 mistakes here where I played h6, that one I actually do understand. But here, when I played this, again, hoping to guard that square, obviously I realize now that I didn't need to guard that square, but it didn't hurt anything, did it? I think we figured out that if I took this pawn and they took back, then I could play c3, but they wouldn't take back. Maybe the reason this is a mistake here is because it wastes time. It allows them to get a move in, whereas if I didn't do that and I just took here immediately, oh, now the engine does think that they would take it immediately, and then I would play c3? Oh no, then it thinks I wouldn't play c3. It thinks I would take here, but I wouldn't, so. Maybe someone can shed a little bit of light on this problem. Is the reason that bishop to f6 is a mistake because it's too slow? Or because it's unnecessary, something like that? Let me know. I would appreciate it. And this other one here, help me understand why I should play queen to a5, threatening a bishop that's about to take my rook. I don't understand that. And as you saw, playing rook to c8 helped me later because it put a rook behind my passed pawn while my queen was over here, and it gave my king room to run when they did eventually check me. So if you know why that's a mistake, let me know. I had hoped to have time to look at another game, but I'll have to do that in a separate video. As you might have noticed, I'm a little out of practice with this, both with speaking and with analyzing games. That's because so much time I have taken off to attend to more important matters. But I'm trying to get back in the groove now that, things around me have smoothed out a little bit. Also, I was never really good at analyzing these quickly. So anyway, thank you for spending your time here. I'll see you next time.